Welcome to the NeuroSpice Life podcast. I'm Freya, an alexithymic counsellor.
And I'm Hanna, a sexologist and sensologist.
And today we're visiting from Rigid Land, where we're talking about how we can always get stuck in overwhelm and it can be really hard to ask for help.
Oh my God. I mean, I can't delegate because you'll do it wrong.
True.
You know, like who am I if I'm not in a perpetual state of burnout, right? Because I think I don't even know if I have the language anymore to even know how to ask for help, because it's been so long now that asking for help seems immeasurably scary, because I think of the amount of times I've been let down in the past. And I feel like if I am carrying so much weight and somebody else drops the ball, then that's something else I have to pick up. It's a feeling, it's a sensory embodiment, and it's a fear that started long ago. Yeah. And I'm actually not sure how to let go of it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, if I couldn't cope if somebody else let me down. So I just kind of feel like I do everything myself. And then there's this kind of persona of being a superwoman or a super person, like an all-round reliable carer, you know?
I'm the doer, the fixer, the holder of all knowledge and wisdom and tasks.
Yeah. I even put it on my resume at one point that I'm the go-to person.
Yeah.
For everything.
Everyone's go-to person. Yes.
Yeah. And I realized and where the rigidity comes in is that it's being stuck in a state of fear. That there's this superstition that all things need to be done a certain way or everything will collapse. Yeah. And I've convinced myself that I have to do it and I have to do everything or the world will somehow explode. And, like who am I if I'm not in this constant state of saying yes and then underestimating how much time that's actually going to take, and then feel guilty that I've overcommitted, and then I feel like I can't delegate. And it was actually something that you mentioned in the last episode that's just kind of occurred to me, is that I've said yes to something. Yeah. So I feel guilty asking somebody else to help me because I'm burdening them. It's a scary thing.
It's a scary thing. And like I'm on the other side of it, like personally, it used to be impossible for me to ask for help. And it used to be so hard to do. And, so many of the mums that I work with each and every day struggle with this as well. And as a mum, like always lead to you pretty much all the time, because you're not just carrying your own load, you're often carrying the load for however many kids that you have and sometimes a partner as well. And just, being the holder of all knowledge and all answers and all control and all the schedules and all of everyone's emotions and, all of those things that we carry that nobody else can see. And it's just, burnout is real. Like the load just builds up until we actually can't take it anymore and our nervous system just nopes out.
Yeah. Because, if that's a state of being that you've been in for so long, like what if you can't regulate because you just don't know how?
Yeah.
And it made me so frustrated. The other day I was watching a video and it was talking about meditation, and it was talking about regulation of your central nervous system. And I got, some might say irrationally, but I think I was quite rationally angry at the video, not at the person making it, but this idea that the way that mindfulness was sold, it was sold on this basis of, well, you can do everything and you can have the full-time career and you can have the family and you can be this person and that person, have your own hobbies and have your own identity. And at the same time, you also have to find a way to regulate yourself.
Yeah.
And the question is, one, how? But two, why? Why should I have to regulate myself over and over and over again just to be able to cope with what many people would probably consider to be an unreasonable amount of things that you're constantly trying to do at any given moment? How much is going on in the background? How much energy is going into the hypervigilance and the anxiety and the overthinking and making sure that everybody else is emotionally regulated? And then
remembering to remember.
And then remember to regulate yourself on top of all of that, and then going, but it's just going to put me back to this place of, it's not going to change anything other than helping me to cope with what's going on right now. It's not going to solve the problem as to why I can't cope.
Yeah. And that's a big part of the work that we do in supporting people with overwhelm and supporting people with burnout, as a therapist, is around actually there's stuff we can do around helping mindfulness and helping to be present in the moment, and doing that in a neuroaffirming way. But fundamentally, you need to do something to shift the load, and you need to do something to make the load less
easier,
because otherwise we're going to end up back there, because that's how we got here. So people always say, I want to go back to who I was, and it's like, but who you were got you here. We need to find a new way going forward of what's the right load for you for this point in your life, because over a lifetime our capacity changes. It goes up and it goes down. And the cruel irony of when you're in burnout and when you're in overwhelm as well is, for a lot of neurodivergent people, particularly autistic people, one of the first skills we lose is the ability to communicate verbally, or communicate at all. And so it can be really, really hard when you're in a state of overwhelm and burnout. Your executive functioning's left the building and somebody says, just ask for help. What help do you need? How can I help you? Like, that is probably one of the worst questions you can ask a neurodivergent person in burnout, because one, it's open-ended, it's vague, and it's ambiguous. Like, how can I help you? Immediately my brain's going, with what? With what part of it? With what aspect of what part of it? Is this an offer forever? Is this an offer for short term? Can I ask for things for this?
Is it not a real offer? Are you just asking because you want to be polite, but you don't actually really want to help?
Yeah, exactly. All of these questions then come into your mind. And then it's that piece of, if I'm part of, the reason we end up overwhelmed burnout is because we've got a problem we can't solve. Part of, to be able to ask for what help I need, I kind of need an idea of what the problem is, but I don't know what I don't know. It's like, I know I'm feeling overwhelmed. I know I've got too much on my plate, but I have no executive functioning. My verbal skills are rapidly leaving the building. And you're asking me a really broad, open question as to what help can I need? And then the answer we say is nothing. We say nothing.
I don't know.
I don't know. Right. So it's like, one of the cool things I've done is look at me, I'm amazing. But one of the simple things I've done is got these overwhelmed help cards now, and it's like literally you just go through the list and it's a tick of a few different things, of small suggestions of things that people can do to help you. Like, it's a card that explains, I'm overwhelmed right now. Words are hard. If you can do this, it would be really helpful.
I love that.
Just because it's part of the problem, that being able to recognise what help you need and being able to articulate that is huge. And then the second layer of that too is then dealing with the fear around, what if they mess it up? And then this is going to be something else that I have to pick up, but you're already in a state of fight flight. So it's not the best place to make decisions. Yeah.
What if they hate me because I've added a burden to them?
Yeah.
And it's so funny. I've seen a few videos where and posts where people have essentially said, if you were a friend and you were in need and you needed help and you didn't tell me, I would be really angry with you.
Yeah. But
inversely, if it's flipped and somebody else is saying, I want to help you, I want to be there for you, it's like, no, of course not. It's always a one-way street, and because we feel guilty when it's reciprocated.
Yeah. And the crazy irony of it too, right, is nobody wants to be in a one-way friendship. Like, nobody wants to be in a friendship where they're always the one receiving help, and it's like almost like a open bar tab or an open ledger that you're waiting to be cashed in at some point. Like, when is this favour bank going to be called in? And so it's like, it's one thing to be helped, it's one thing to be helping others, that's great, like that's really, really cool, but to actually be helped and for it to be reciprocal, that's where true friendship exists.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, it can't be one-way street.
And it can be scary, absolutely. But I think we also have to accept that if someone has offered, and then if for whatever reason you did give them something and they didn't speak up and say, well, actually, I had something else in mind, or, I don't want to help you that way. then that's kind of on them. Like if they get mad at you for something like a situation like that. Whereas I think, and this one really hit me like a ton of bricks one time. It is so selfish to not ask for help.
Yeah.
Because you're robbing somebody of the opportunity for them to give you the gift of help. And it reminds me, there was like one of our friends, she went to hospital and she's got 2 kids, and we were trying to think about how we could help. And I think you suggested, and I thought this was absolutely brilliant, you suggested getting a laundry service.
Yeah.
And all I could think of was, oh my God, that is amazing, because laundry for me, and hilariously in the last video on YouTube, the laundry pile behind me kept flashing in and out of camera. I'm just going to call that out for what it is, because that was hilarious.
Yeah.
The laundry for me, like I can do the laundry, I just hate putting it away. And so when it comes back to neurodivergent love languages, things like spoon swapping, even if spoon swapping doesn't have to be an immediate 1-for-1, spoon swapping can be as what is hard for you right now?
Mm-hmm.
And can I take that off your plate? If somebody was just said, would you accept my help? Of course I would. But would I avoid asking them? Would I downplay the situation? Would I make it so that I gave them the easiest task for them to do? Yeah, I probably would, because the system I have in place is a system for avoidance, not for action.
Yep.
And because I've stacked my plate so full of all the things that I've said yes to and all the fears of letting people down, and the irony is that I view time as a precious commodity without actually valuing it in an actionable way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And delegation, you said before, delegation is scary, because we've also realized we can't necessarily trust people to do things the way that we would, or that they'll do the things that they say that they will.
Yeah. And there's 2 things on delegation that I've learned over the years. And again, this is something I work through with a lot of clients, overwhelm, burnout. 1 is about what you delegate, and 2 is how you do it. And that can be the thing about making it a little less scary. Because if you haven't done it or you've been bitten before, it's just like, let's chunk it down, let's make it smaller. And there's this awesome matrix called the Eisenhower matrix, coined after the president. It was how, allegedly he would sort activities every day. And you look at urgent. Is it urgent? Is it needs to happen in the next day or 2? Is it important? Yes, no. And that gives you 4 quadrants. And your quadrant for delegation is it's urgent, it needs to happen now, but it's not important.
Yeah.
So it might be, like a form needs returning. We've run out of groceries in the fridge, all of that kind of stuff. There's a lot of things in there. Laundry needs happening. Like at the end of the day, it's, because no one's got any clothing to wear to school tomorrow. It's something that needs to happen now. There'll be consequences if it doesn't, like kids running around naked with empty lunch boxes. But it's like at the end of the day, it's fundamentally not that important as to how it gets done, or it's, it's not something that's going to carry a lot of weight necessarily. Like worst case, the kids go to school out of uniform with a note, and money for the canteen, or Uber Eats delivered to school, whatever. But there are workarounds for it. So there's not going to be this huge unyielding consequence. So focusing on those things first is really helpful. And for our brains, just that ability to have those 2 simple categories and questions can help kind of demystify, does this need to be done by me? So it's like it's urgent, important, you delegate it. And then the second thing for me is when I delegate now, I used to delegate the task. And by that, and I learned this in corporate life, that's actually not a sustainable way of doing things, because if you're going to have somebody and pay them to do something for you, but then micromanage how they do it and expect them to do it a certain way, that's not setting anyone up for success. So instead, it's delegating the outcome. Like this is, the outcome is that we need 2 school uniforms and the kids need to be fed, and that's it. Like, we need 2 school uniforms, breakfast, and some lunchbox items. Don't care what it is. Like, you solve that, you sort that out. And there needs to be that freedom in relation to letting go of the process. How to do that, like that's on you. But that sort of seems to be 2 of the game-changing things when it comes to delegation and making it a little less horrendous.
Yeah. It's that whole adage of, teach a person to fish. If you're having to tell them what to do and then manage how they do it and then fix it at the end because they haven't done it the way that you wanted them to, then that's often, and then the logical conclusion is, well, I'll just do it myself because it's easier.
Yeah.
And that doesn't actually do anything. In fact, that doubles your workload. So if somebody hasn't done something to the standard that you want them to do, it's either one of two things. Either they've done it to their good enough standard, but is the painting finished? Is the task done? Did the kids go to school with a couple of yogurt pouches, a whole apple not cut up, and maybe a cheese sandwich or something like that with craft cheese in it? Who cares? Versus weaponized incompetence, which might be that somebody's purposefully put all the cups face up, so that the tops are at the top instead of facing down, in order to make that task more difficult for you, so that you have to come in and do it in the future because it's not something that they want to do. And so there's often looking at it in sort of two different ways. And where it really feels like an overwhelming burden on top of everything else, that's where the state of the nation really needs to come into play, where you sit down once a week and you're like, look, this is everything that I've got on my plate this week. I can only give 30%. How much can you give? Right? You can give 40. That's great. Together we make up 70% of the overall. Where is that 30% going to drop off? Are we going to get, are we going to meal prep over the weekend? Are we going to maybe order some really cheap takeout? Whatever the case, not that takeout's that cheap anymore, but there are solutions that you can.
What are we not going to do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
we're not going to clean the bathrooms this week. Yeah. Yeah.
But and I think, and I've heard a lot of parents talk about this, and it's the unknown fear. If I don't give my kids everything fresh and organic and perfectly cut up and compete with all the other parents and at the school and things like that, then my child's not going to have the best start. They're not going to have the ability to take on all the information and learn. Therefore, they're not going to get into a scholarship, and then they're not going to get into university, and then they're not going to have a good job. And before you know it, this whole runaway train of fears has taken over. And when you actually really look at a situation, you're not actually looking at the reality. You're allowing your fear to take over, and then you become rigid in this thing of, no, I have to do this the right way, otherwise my kids aren't going to become a prime minister or president. If it's a week of sending your kids to school with slightly less healthy foods and organic fruit and vegetables, I think that's okay. The reality is that fear probably isn't grounded in anything other than parental guilt.
Yeah.
And the things that scare us are the things that actually stop us from potentially delegating, are the things that are causing us to be rigid because we haven't actually gone down that pathway, either with a trained healthcare professional or even just sitting down with a journal and going to that worst possible outcome and going, is this actually real? Is it rational? And if it's not rational, then it's an invitation to rethink.
Yeah. And spoiler alert, very rarely is rational, because that's part of the brain trap we get into. But you're right, and that's where fear lives. Is fear lives in the stuff we can't control, because and so often we then bring the responsibility back to ourselves. We bring the blame back to ourselves, because whilst that's uncomfortable, it's like if I'm at fault, if I need to do more, if I can fix it, then it's no longer scary. As opposed to actually just let's sit with the fear, like see, is it really something? Breathe through it, work through it, and actually just what's one thing that I can do in this moment that's sensible.
Yeah, it's actually I'd relate it a lot like to superstition as well, like touching wood or not going under a ladder. Yeah, something like that. We're as humans, we do this thing where we believe that if we do something one way, then this will be the outcome, even if it's not necessarily the case. And so I think, to kind of end this week's episode, I'd like to end it on a couple of questions for our listeners to go away and have a think about.
Yeah.
First of all, what does rest look like to you?
Yeah.
What does letting go look like to you?
Yeah.
How can you ask people around you for help where you're not constantly having to ask for it?
Yeah.
And what would you choose for yourself if you didn't have to consider other people?
Good questions. I love those. And hit us up with answers in the comments if that sparked anything for you. Like, we'd love to hear. And while you're at it, like and subscribe to keep up to date with new episodes that drop. But yeah, I love that as an exploration this week of from Rigid Land about how often we can get really stuck in asking for help and ending up overwhelmed and burnout. So thanks for listening.
And you're not alone.
You're not alone. Yeah,
Stay spicy.
You're listening to the NeuroSpice Life podcast with Hanna and Freya, besties, brains, and more. If you've enjoyed listening, follow us on YouTube or your favourite podcast app and share it with someone else who knows the sting of a sticky label.
We'll see you next time. Until then, stay spicy, stay wonderful.